Hey friends, I'm Christy Hughes, and you're listening to Rock the Damn Boat. If you've ever bitten your tongue to keep the peace or said yes when every part of you wanted to say no, this one's for you. We're diving into the messy, real stuff that people pleasers like me have spent years avoiding. It's time to have the hard conversations, shake things up, and learn to stand tall even when it makes waves. And I might be making waves for you today when I talk about what it means to be assertive versus what we as people pleasers often think is being mean or unkind. Assertion is a word that was shared with me with a coach I was working with years ago. And it really landed for me. And maybe you need this conversation today because you need to understand that being assertive means that you are standing up for yourself, that you are being direct, that you are communicating your own needs, that you're not intentionally attacking someone or going out of your way to be mean, or that being direct is in any way being angry or rude. There are several things that have helped align this idea for me, and it's gone a long way to boosting my confidence. It's definitely what helped me become a leader in my industry. So I was a director of sales for 3 years. I recently left to coach and podcast and write. And so I'm doing these other things to help inspire people pleasers like me, because you can achieve what you would like to achieve, even though you may feel like your quiet and shy and introverted nature are going to hold you back. So today's conversation is just for you if that's how you feel sometimes. Now, let's start with the definition of assertive. Definition from Oxford Languages: assertive, having or showing a confident or forceful personality. Now, this is exactly why I do not like this definition, because it says specifically forceful. Anyone who is introverted or a conflict avoider, Enneagram 2, definitely am looping in some Enneagram language today. Any of us who have typically taken a back seat, put other people's needs first, we consider other people who are more direct to be somewhat forceful. And that can be true. Absolutely. Assertiveness can push into aggressiveness. We have people who maybe walk all over us. Now, in all fairness, we have probably put ourselves in a doormat position in the past. So this means by becoming more assertive and more direct, that you have to let go of doormat status. Okay. No more doormats. Now, Wikipedia says that assertiveness is the quality of being self-assured and confident without being aggressive. Assertive, to those of us who have typically been in the back seat, can to us mean danger or aggressiveness. And one of the things that I think about as it relates to Enneagram 2 specifically is we have expectations that people are going to treat us the way that we treat them. So anytime someone is more assertive or direct, that might be a perceived threat because we were not assertive and direct, and we expected that person to respond in kind, both literally and figuratively. So that is one of the things that I talked about on last week's Sunday Shortie, is that we cannot predict what somebody else's response is going to be. So one of the things that we have to understand is that other people are being assertive or direct without putting as much thought into it as we are. So I also talked last week about rumination, and that is one of the things that when we are assertive, then it leaves us with this feeling of rumination. Oh my gosh, I was mean. I was unkind. That person's going to reject me. That is our amygdala saying, danger, I'm going to be rejected. When we are assertive and things go well, that helps us rewire our brains to understand that, hey, I can stand up for what I want, or I can express my point of view, and it turned out okay, and I was safe. So, assertion for me was a very powerful word. In addition to the definition, when you Google, and this of course pulls from a million different sources, the Google conglomeration of 5 common assertive behaviors, I really like these. And so I want to share them with you and shed light on my own experience. So, number one, clearly stating your needs and opinions. One of the things that can happen, and especially in Enneagrams 2, is we get into this passive aggressive type of behavior. Just like we expect people to respond in the same way that we do, we think, oh, if we're really soft and soft in our approach, that someone else is going to be able to read our minds, read between the lines, know exactly what we're actually trying to say, but that we're unable to say because we're trying to be so kind. Clearly state your needs and opinions. It is Brene Brown who has most commonly coined the phrase, clear is kind. If that is a simple phrase that can stick in your mind for when you're having maybe a difficult conversation or you're asking for your own needs, clear is kind. So clearly state your needs and opinions. Saying no politely but firmly. Now, one of the things I think it's funny is that they give the example of, thank you for asking, but I can't help with that right now. I have told you before, if you've listened to the podcast, no is a complete sentence. Say no politely but firmly. I don't care if it's polite or not. No is a complete sentence. So you decide the way that you're going to say no. But that is one way to be more assertive and not so people pleasing. Using I statements. So this one is interesting because this would be from the place of your needs and not the other person's. And one of the ways that I like to coach women about this, and especially when we talk about heart in my Thrive framework, is what your heart wants matters. Using I statements and expressing yourself. This example is, I feel frustrated when I'm interrupted, rather than saying, you always interrupt me. Say, I feel this way when this is what is said. One of the things that I encourage women to do is think about valuing themselves as much as they value the other person, because what happens in people pleasing situations and when we are not able to be assertive is because we consider that person's feelings to be more important than our own. And that is one of the reasons that we struggle to be assertive, is because we're afraid of hurting the other person's feelings. But what if that situation leaves us with the short end of the stick? Like, why do we put someone else's feelings ahead of our own and not get what we want out of a situation? We are always so used to putting the other person's needs first. What would it look like if you stood up for your own needs? That is being assertive, not mean. You are a valuable person. You are the most important person in your life. I know that might be hard to digest, hard to hear, but we are rocking the damn boat on this podcast. And that is what I want you to know. Your feelings and needs are important and valuable. And when you cannot express those needs, that is the opposite of being assertive. That is being people pleaser. That is lacking confidence. And I know it can be difficult. And especially depending on the level of assertiveness, directness, control that other people in your lives exhibit. Number 4, maintaining appropriate body language. So one way to be assertive is to use steady eye contact, a relaxed posture, and a clear, calm voice to convey confidence and sincerity. I love this one because I do think that body language says a lot. I've worked on that from a public speaking standpoint. When I was in college, I worked for a chiropractor and he was a creep. So we are not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. But one thing that he did teach me that was actually a valuable piece of information was that when you are speaking to someone, you can concentrate on their left eye, and then that gives you something to focus on to make really steady eye contact. Now, I know there's a lot of buzz around autism and ADHD and all of these late diagnoses that we are seeing, but even if you are not autistic, it can be very difficult to maintain eye contact with somebody because it can be a little intense, especially in an emotionally charged conversation. So, there's your little tip that I am giving to you that he probably learned from, I don't know, he was a big like Zig Ziglar devotee. Some people talk about concentrating on the end of the nose, but I'm always worried that I'm going to look cross-eyed if I'm looking at somebody's nose. So, left eye. Finally, number 5 of the 5 common assertive behaviors, seeking understanding and compromise. Actively listening to others, validating their feelings, working towards solutions that consider everyone's needs. So, this is talking about a compromise or a mutually beneficial solution. Because if you are a people pleaser, then I'm sure you have always backed down and given the other person what they want. That is where I found myself in so many situations in life. And when I look back at the times where I was the most agitated and probably the times in my life where I drank the most heavily was when I felt strongly about a point of view or something that I wanted to maybe mention at work. Like maybe I had a suggestion at work and I was afraid to share it because hello amygdala thought that I was going to die from bringing up my point of view. And I was very attached to the outcome because, like I talked about rehearsing, I might have rehearsed and expected things to go a certain way. So, finding a mutually beneficial solution, not one that is you're right, I'm wrong. Because as people pleasers, as Enneagram 2s, as wallflowers, as those who lack confidence, introverts, we are probably 90% of the time going to agree to whatever the other person wants out of the situation. And going back to valuing yourself as much as you value others, you deserve to walk away from that situation feeling like it was a mutually beneficial solution. And maybe you don't always get what you want, but you felt heard, seen, and valued in that conversation. Now, one of the things that can happen when we decide to become more assertive is people notice the change, and it can feel very difficult or sometimes isolating to lose friends who appreciated our people pleasing Enneagram 2 nature. Going back to the doormat. If you've been a doormat your whole life, people are used to that. And they're used to you being the friend that boosts them up and lets them get away with anything. Maybe it's a spouse. Maybe it's a family member. You have always been the agreeable one. And now you are the assertive one. Keep in mind, you are not the mean one. You are not the angry one. You are the assertive one. We're going from being blindly agreeable doormat to neutral, assertive. Look it up. Get some tips on how to be assertive. It is assertion. It is not being unkind. That is the Sunday Shorties. Be more assertive. I got your back. Thanks for listening to the show. You've been listening to Rock the Damn Boat, a podcast produced and recorded by Christy Hughes. You can follow, subscribe on both Apple and Spotify, and your 5-star review goes a long way. Thank you so much for your support of the show.